So let's finally get into the songwriting, man. You're an interesting cat, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Stories in song. You've already mentioned perspective in song. There's so many different aspects to songwriting that make it so interesting to an
Yeah.
outsider like me who can't even click a pen in rhythm. Right? I can't do nothing.
Come on. Come on.
No, it's true. It's
If I
true.
can if I can do this, you can definitely click that pen to a rhythm.
Maybe. So, what's your process like? Are you mentioned God earlier that you're just the pen, you're God's pen. Are you that conduit? You're just the
I
conduit.
I took that was Hank Williams said that, and man, I couldn't agree more because when you're sitting in these rooms, there's no guarantee. You could walk out with a hit song.
Hmm.
You could walk out with a terrible song. You could walk out with half. You can walk out with nothing.
Well, for the record, the
Uh,
hit song can be a terrible song too. So I mean, this,
it's a very good point. I stand corrected. Um, there's so many different ways that it can go, though, and honestly, man, my favorite ones and a lot of the best ones, and I've learned this just from paying attention to the hit songwriters that I've gotten to write with and work with since I've really started diving into the songwriting. Um, and even some of the other guys that aren't hit writers or what have you, they all start and they don't talk about it. You just have to catch it. And if you don't catch it, that is what it is. But all the best ones start with conversation and then lead from there.
yep.
Uh, and as soon as I caught that, man, I left that right. I'll never forget that day, man. I caught that and I thought the whole rest of the writing. We got a song. I don't remember what song it was. Um, if it was good or bad, I couldn't tell you. But the one thing I took away from that whole thing was these guys aren't talking. They're not coming in, opening up their cases, and
Hmm.
what are we going to write today? The best songs and the best songwriters,
I
those are
love
my
this.
neighbors. Um, See, they agree.
Yep.
They agree with me. The best songs always come from the conversations,
Are you friends with
because it's.
Bernie Nelson?
I am not, but we have actually been around each other. I don't know how many times, and you're gonna make me reach out to him now. I think.
So, I got to talk with him recently. It's so funny you say conversation. I literally released a TikTok video today, literally today, probably an hour before we talked, from my interview with him, where I asked him what his best advice was for young songwriters, and the word he used was conversation.
Yeah, man.
So
What
crazy that
comes
you
out?
say that too. I love this.
Hey, man. What comes? I now I'm gonna have to hit up
You
Bernie
have
because
to
if that's what he
absolutely,
told me or told you, and you're telling me, I feel like we would probably write some cool songs together.
absolutely, you would.
Uh, and I love writing by myself. Um, I don't do it often enough.
Hmm.
Taking my time was a solo write. Um,
Except for the 5% that the guy that tricked you gets as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that
Do we have to give Pat
honestly,
Green 5% too? I mean, probably, right?
look, he doesn't need it as much as I need it
That's
right
a
now.
fair point.
Diapers are expensive.
That's a fair point.
But I will say, the conversation, man, it's real life.
Hmm.
What we're doing right now. If you see me typing anything out on my phone, I'm not being rude.
No,
I'm
I know
just
what you're
writing
doing.
down.
I know what you're
I'm
doing.
writing out ideas, man,
Yep.
because it's just you know I just wrote a song last week, and I know there's other similar things that people have written and released, but somebody said, man, it's tough. This isn't for the faint of heart. And
Nope.
I said, look, man, I've been doing this for a good while now, and I know what it takes, and I know what I have, and I know what I want, and I know the songs are only getting better. Man, I can't wait for you to hear some of this new stuff that people haven't heard yet, because
Which just
I told.
some foreshadowing. Your next single is going to be played at the end of this at the end of this episode, which is called
Yes,
Countryside. I'm excited to show people that in a little while. A little bit of foreshadowing for new music
yeah,
coming from Jon Stork as well. Go ahead. Sorry for
absolutely.
interrupting.
But no, I think, oh man, I don't even know where I was there.
You know, it's funny. Songwriting is extremely unusual in that when you have a success in songwriting, um, that's great. You have a success, but human nature is okay. I am successful. I did this. Now your instinct is to replicate that. You can't do that in songwriting. You can't write the same song over and over again and have success with it. It has to be different each time. And so I feel like that is really, really tough as a songwriter. You talk about it being the hardest thing you've ever done. It's so true. Because when you have a success, you can't just say, "Oh, I did it. I found the success. I found the button. Now I'll just push that button over and over again." But the button only works once. Now you have to find a different button and do it again. And that's the crazy thing
I
about
love
songwriting.
that.
Yeah.
That right there is money. I don't care what anybody else says. That's songwriting. I'm going to use that when I go to Nashville next, and these hit songwriters are talking, and I'm going to say it's like finding a button and then having to go find another button because that button doesn't work anymore. No, man, that's exactly right. And I think where I was with the whole conversation bit, talking to somebody and them telling me, man, this is tough. You know, this is not for the faint of heart and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know, look, I know what I've got. I'm going. The songs are only getting better. And I've still got my boots on. So as long as I got my boots on, man, I'm going. It doesn't matter what happens. And I wrote it.
And
I
as
wrote
an
that
artist,
last
you
week.
lived through probably the hardest thing any of us have lived through in our lifetimes. You came out the other side. You're still making it as a full-time musician. So now your inner voice should be telling you, hey, we survived that. We're good. Now we can just plow forward. And here we are. We're able to live life again. What's it like for you? You are one of the few, in my opinion, in the scene that has incredible songs that are ballads and really heart wrenching, soul filled songs. But then you also have really cool, upbeat, super party themed kind of vibey songs as well. As a songwriter, what's the strategy there? Are you just bringing this in from the cosmos, or are you trying to write an upbeat song? Are you trying to write a heart-filled song? What's it like in that room?
You never know. My wife likes to refer to it as fishing. You're going fishing. But as long as you are prepared, even fishing can be pretty productive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when I go into, you know, a room, I've got a handful of ideas. I've got at least 3 is my minimum. Okay, I've got 3 ideas. I think that I could write with this person. If it's cold, never written together, never worked together, never hung out together, never played together, you have to. It's something, because if the conversation doesn't lead anywhere, I've got something. I've got something started. I've got something in my pocket. I've got a great idea. I've got a melody. I've got something to pull out from my tool belt, and we can get the ball rolling there. Now, because it happens a lot. You know, if I wanted to go tempo, if I wanted to go upbeat, or, you know, I'm thinking about, well, I need something a little bit more upbeat. Man, I'm good with slow, sad country songs. I love some sad songs. And eventually people around me were like, all right, man, you might need to start writing something a little bit more upbeat or a little bit happier. So all that being said, it also depends on the other person, because you don't know what's going on inside of them.
You're talking about a co-writer, right?
A co-write,
yeah.
You know, whether it's 1 or 2 people, a collaboration.
Yeah.
You know, as far as me writing myself, I think the last song that I solo wrote, trying to think, that was probably a couple months ago, and it just popped out. I had gotten back home from a trip, and I wanted to get X amount of songs in X amount of days, and it just wasn't working out. And I got back, and I was bummed out, thinking, you know, I didn't get as much as I wanted to get accomplished with the time that I had away. And I laid down in bed that night. I was ready to go to bed. I pulled the sheets over me.
Oh my gosh, happens to me
And
all the time, man.
as soon as I laid down, man, it went boop. And
Oh,
I pulled the sheets back. I went and grabbed my guitar. I got back in bed. I pulled the sheets back over, and I was laying in bed when my wife walked in the room. She was like, "What are you doing? You've been gone for a week. Just chill." And I said, "I can't, because if I don't get this down right now,
it's gone. Yep.
it's gone,
Yep.
and it's never coming back." And she has since, not even since then, but since she started kind of having her own ideas and thoughts and thinking about things a little bit more of a songwriter perspective, she's understood that as well. Because if you don't put that down, somebody else out there in the ether is going to grab that idea. And it's a real thing, man. It's
Absolutely.
a real thing, like we already talked about. But I wrote that song. I finished it the next day. I was like, I gotta go to sleep. I can't do this anymore. My eyes are closing. I put the guitar away. I got back in bed. I had half a song. I woke up the next day, finished it in the front seat of the van on our way to a show. And I played it when we got there. And the guys are pushing boxes in, and I'm sitting back there. Usually I'm right in the thick of it. I'm pushing stuff and setting things up with them and helping make sure everything's good. And I'm sitting in the back on top of a case with my phone, just trying to get this out and audible. Because at that point, it was really only humming, and then I did all the lyrics. When I write by myself, the process changes every single time. When I write with
it's a different button.
A co-writer, it's a different button. It's a different button. Thank you.
Yep.
And man, when you write with other people and co-write or anything more than that, believe me, 3 people in one room is not crazy. When you start getting into 6, 7, 8 people on one song, I just don't know how it happens, but it's out there.
It certainly is.
But those different perspectives and everything feeds into it. You never know what's going to happen.
That's
It's like flipping an 8-sided die. You're just trying to see where it lands. But it all comes back to the conversation and the way that day starts, or that write. Whether it's by yourself.
Funny, man. When Bernie told me that, it has changed the way that I listen to music now. Because
it probably ruined a couple things for you too. You're like,
no,
I hear
not
that
at
a
all.
little different.
It's cool actually, because now, as a fan, the perspective changes, and you can appreciate what the songwriter was trying to do. Whereas before, you're just, man, I feel like so many of us just consume music kind of half-heartedly, right? Like, we love the melody. Maybe we don't really listen to the lyrics, but we love the melody. And then perhaps maybe 15 years later, you kind of, somebody tells you, what that song's about, right? And you're just like, you know what? No, I don't, but I love the melody. And then you listen to the song and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what? So
this is about what?
Yeah, I feel like we do that a lot. Like we just consume music just kind of with no brain sometimes. It's like
willy-nilly.
Music just shuts us down, right? So when you start listening to music from a place of introspection, and you have some advice or some words that somebody told you, and now you're listening to the music for the conversation, and you're like, oh, this is what Bernie was talking about. This song is a conversation. Like his big hit, Daddy Never Was the Cadillac Kind by Confederate Railroad. You think about that song, it's a conversation. Like it's just a conversation. You don't realize it. Sure, the words rhyme somewhat and the melody is great, but really it's just built around a conversation. And man, it's so weird how it changes your outlook on music, and now you're looking for those things. And then you notice the songs that are not a conversation too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, and I'm again, I don't know how long ago Bernie told you that. So like I said,
it's pretty fresh, couple of weeks.
You can't unhear what you've heard.
Yep.
And I will just leave it at that, because from now on, you're going to be listening to music in a totally different way.
Yep.
It's like somebody opened your eyes.
Well, same thing. I've been very fortunate to interview some really well-known composers recently that do film scores and things like that. And so now, just watching movies, I never realized there was really all of this music in movies and TV and stuff. And you don't realize it until somebody tells you, this is what I was thinking there, and this is why I put that there. And then when you go back and watch movies now, you hear the music and you understand it now. And they put it like the Jaws theme. Like Steve Dorff told me, would you be afraid of the shark if you didn't hear the doo-doo, doo-doo? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't even know there was a shark without that. And he was like, my point exactly.
Bingo.
So like it changes everything when you start thinking about why, the whys of things. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I mean, even in the, I got to bring it up. I got to say it. Otherwise it's going to drive me crazy. Going back to writing with people that I never even thought I would meet, that wrote songs that I grew up listening to, that I haven't heard, that a lot of people haven't probably heard in years, if not decades, who would know every word as soon as it came on.
Yep.
One of those types of songs.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And learning from those guys, and I can't tell you the first one who did it, but there's a lot of them, that we would be there and we'd be sitting there and we'd get all the lyrics or half of them, and they would start reading it like a letter. And I don't know if you've heard that, but reading it like a letter. And if it doesn't read well like a letter, then you got to go back and fix.
Mm-hmm.
You got to fix something, because it's a conversation. And the ones that aren't conversations are points in time, or their instances, or their experiences or events or something along those lines. And those are amazing as well. But the one part of the conversation thing that I just love is man, that whole letter, whether it's to yourself, the last solo write that I got out of bed and grabbed the guitar on, it was introspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conversation with yourself, and that all came because I saw somebody rolling through the Walmart parking lot, looked like somebody just shot their dog, and he's smoking with his windows up. And I thought, I pointed him out and looked at my wife. I said, that guy is hurting.
Yep.
Middle of the day, and she goes, "What are you talking about?" And I'm just staring out the window. And
do you create a backstory for that person? Because that's what I do, man. When I see people like that, I'm creating a backstory. Like for some reason, just self-consciously, I'm trying to figure out why he's hurting. Like, I bet you this happened to him, or this happened to him. Are you that guy too?
I try not to assume too much,
right?
But yes, that guy got a story made about him that day. He didn't even know, and that's what, man, I loved bartending. And even from my bartending days, I had a notebook behind the bar that's since turned into just notes on a computer and a phone. But I had a notebook that I would just go write stuff down when I saw that stuff or heard it. Those situations or those people just sitting there pouring out their heart to somebody because they don't have anyone else that'll listen to them right now. It's just one of those things.
So I've had a very similar experience to bartending. I stream video games live sometimes on Twitch. I did it full time for a lot of years. Ooh, what just happened? Something happened with my hand as well. I did this and it switched. But anyway, so I would get that same thing. Just people coming in and they want commiseration and they want understanding and they need somebody to talk to and tell their story to. And there's so much anonymity on the internet that I'm safe. I'm a safe place, and so is a bartender, so to speak. So, I always considered myself kind of a virtual bartender when I'm just sitting there playing Call of Duty or PUBG or something, and somebody comes in and tells me how bad their day was, or share their joys with me as well. I got married and just found out we're pregnant. I've got 5 years of that on Twitch, and it's really a powerful, powerful thing. Like people, we talked about earlier how music is not seen as a viable career. Man, gaming is even worse than that, right? Like, but I made a pretty good living at it, and but the side of that is being able to help people and being openly a safe place, because that's what bartenders are as well. I always kind of likened myself to a virtual bartender, so it was interesting that you said that, because yeah, a lot of people are just looking for validation from, and it's easier to get that from a stranger, I think, than to throw yourself out there to a family member or something that might, because I mean, shoot, the people we know the best are the ones that are going to judge us the most too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And you know, at the end of the day, if they ain't paying your bills or making you smile,
that's right, absolutely.